Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. So I'm Shelly. I should probably introduce myself before I say what am I doing today, but what am I doing today? Well, going around on YouTube in this moment, possibly even today, there is a pseudo tag going around. And this conversation started with Eric Carl Anderson at The Lonesome Reader and his video that he did with Sarah at Hardcover Hearts, another booktuber here that both of them do wonderful, wonderful videos. And they talked about their top 5 English novels. And of course, you know, when there's a really cool conversation going on, we like to get in on it. So Hannah from Hannah's Books, she took this idea and suggested a tag. And the question is, why don't you share your top 5 English novels? And if that is too big of a task, or if you want to add your own spin to it, it could be your top 5 English novels since starting Booktube, your top 5 English novels in college, or maybe pre-Booktube, or your top 5 English novels only from a particular century, like the 19th century, or the 20th century, or the 21st century. The options are unlimited. They're not limited. They're essentially unlimited to how you want to approach this, and that's what Hannah suggested. Oh, my alarm, there's interruptions already. Very Shelly video here. So that's what Hannah suggested, but I don't think she actually tagged anybody. So this morning I saw Jack from the Rambling Raconteur, and in very polite Jack fashion, Jack joined the conversation, but yet again, without tagging anybody. And I was thinking, we really need to get the ball rolling with tags. So I am going to officially turn this into a tag and tag a whole bunch of people at the end, because that's when you tag people at the end. And hopefully I can beat the Steve Donahue to the punch in weaponizing an idea and turning it into a tag. So here is the top 5 English novels tag, and this is my version of it. Okay, so the way I wanted to do this tag is my scope, my lens that I wanted to put onto the top 5 English novels is that I wanted to do it based on the books that I've read since starting Booktube. So I'm almost at my 1-year anniversary, and I thought this would be a really great way to celebrate and also kind of put a parameter on this list, at least for me. And I've read some absolutely incredible English novels in the last year, so I think it'll be the cream of the crop. So, okay, I'm gonna go in publication order. So starting with the oldest, this was published in 1818, and I read this because of Jane Austen July. I think I just flashed it to you. But my first novel is gonna be Persuasion by Jane Austen. So, if you don't know anything about Persuasion, this is the story of Anne Elliot, who in her younger days turned down a lovely suitor who pops up in her life later on. And it is exploring the idea of missed opportunity and regret. And of course, in Jane Austen style, it's witty and funny in many ways. And there's a lot of poking fun at the characters. It's also one of her shortest novels. So if you're intimidated by Austen, this is her most concise and brief of her novels, besides novellas like Lady Susan and so on. So anyways, now I read this for Jane Austen July, and during that month I made it very clear that I was not a Jane Austen lover. I was not a Janeite. I really had kind of reservations about Jane Austen, though I could see why she was so well loved. I didn't quite arrive at that love myself, though I wouldn't, scorn anybody for loving Jane Austen. She's quite amazing. And then I picked up Persuasion for Jane Austen July, which is an event here on Booktube. I don't think I mentioned that. And I loved it. I love this novel, and I think it was because of one scene, and I'm not going to spoil the scene, but I'm going to put this down. I didn't think that Jane Austen could achieve an emotional depth. I hadn't seen that from Austen's writing. I knew that she was clever and witty, and she could really kind of put pieces together in a way that constructed a beautiful story, and she had great characters. But I didn't think that she could sort of pull out the emotions and make me feel destroyed. No, make me feel something inside, like get that emotion sort of swelled up inside of me. And then I read Persuasion. And all of those thoughts about my judgments of Jane Austen, about her emotional depth and what she can create with her writing, were absolutely changed, because in Persuasion, again, I'm not going to spoil it, there is a scene, and if you know, that is touching and beautiful and sincere and honest, and it really moved me. And I think it was that moment that I thought, I think I've been wrong about Jane Austen this whole time. And for me, that's a wonderful feeling to have, to be like, okay, I'm reassessing you, and I was wrong, and I think that you're brilliant, and now I want to revisit all of your works. So Jane Austen, Persuasion has a very special place in my heart, especially since starting Booktube. Okay, so we're moving forward about 60 years, and we're going all the way up to 1877 with Anne Sewell's book, Black Beauty. The story of Black Beauty really explores the treatment of animals and how to treat an animal humanely, while also talking about the inhumane treatment of horses, particularly during the Victorian era. That essentially is Black Beauty in a nutshell. It is a beautiful story, it is an eye-opening story, and it was one that was really important to me, but for very personal reasons. So I have had pets, I have had cats, but I had never wanted, or I had thought that I wouldn't be a very good dog owner, because I had heard that dogs take a lot of energy and time in a way that cats don't. And so I had always avoided even wanting a puppy, because I thought that I wouldn't be a very good pet owner. And it wasn't until I read Black Beauty, and I know that it is through the voice of Anne Sewell that we hear Black Beauty describe what a wonderful owner is, at least according to the horse Black Beauty, and from his perspective. And it wasn't until I read that I just came to terms with the perception of myself, and essentially the lie that I was telling myself that I wouldn't be a good pet owner, because everything that Black Beauty described as a wonderful pet owner, somebody who pays attention to their animals, who treats them with respect, that in some ways puts them in a place of honor as a creature living on this earth that has emotions and is sentient. And so as Black Beauty is describing what a wonderful owner was, it dawned on me that I would be a great pet owner. And it was very shortly after that, I think it was about 3 weeks later, that I got my wonderful and amazing miniature schnauzer, Harry, who has brought a lot of joy to my life, and I wouldn't ever want to do without. And so it was the English novel of Black Beauty that brought me to the decision to get Sweet Harry, which I should show you, but I think he's looking longingly at birds in the sunroom, and I'm going to leave him there for now. There is a trend among these top 5 English novels videos. Everyone chooses a Virginia Woolf novel. And partly it's because Virginia Woolf is a queen, and brilliant and amazing and foundational to modern and postmodern literature. So I can absolutely understand why Virginia Woolf is being chosen, but I find it almost humorous that every single person has chosen a Virginia Woolf novel. And I am not going to be any better or any different, and I'm actually choosing the novel that everybody has talked about most. So I'm like the most basic of Virginia Woolf's novels. Anyways, but it is my third choice is going to be Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. And this was published in 1925. Mrs. Dalloway is it is basically a day in London, but through a stream of consciousness writing and through multiple perspectives in order to take the reader throughout the day. It is gorgeous, it is shocking, and it was a very different read for me. I've had some technical difficulties, and I had to pause this little recording session for a minute. And so now I'm back, and I've been thinking about why I love Mrs. Dalloway. Okay, so Mrs. Dalloway is set right after the Spanish influenza pandemic in 1918, and so anyways, the book is set just after this influenza pandemic has died down, and so we're following partly Clarissa Dalloway, who is spending a day in London preparing for a party that she's going to have at her house. But all of this is extra exciting and extra exhilarating because people haven't been out for a long time because of this sickness. And so that's where we enter the novel. And from there, we are exploring the internal lives of a handful of characters. And these characters are complex and have their own individual issues, but also somehow sort of share a very complex and fraught inner life. And so there are things, even though everybody is experiencing their feelings in isolation, there is a sense that everybody is together in what they are feeling, whether it be an insecurity or a sadness or it almost like everybody feels this way, but we don't recognize these feelings in one another because of the way that we communicate and share time with one another. It was just a brilliant novel. I really didn't think much about stream of consciousness writing. I actually would have probably said that writing style is not for me until I read Mrs. Dalloway, and I realized that that technique of stream of consciousness writing is very unique. And it creates a very unique reading experience for me. For example, I think I've mentioned this in a video before, so apologies if this is a repeat for you, but in Mrs. Dalloway, I feel like I'll be looking as I'm reading, I'm picturing and spending time with a particular scene, and I'm almost like immersed in this scene. Like, for example, people sitting down to have something to eat, and I'm sitting down with them, and then suddenly something will happen, and I feel as if I am ripped from this moment, the moment where I'm sitting down with these characters, and we're going in a direction that I thought we were headed, and then all of a sudden something will happen, and I feel like I am quite literally ripped from this moment, shocked, and now looking at something that completely surprised me, but yet somehow still fits with the structure and the storyline and the tale of the novel. And yet I feel like my perspective was completely shifted from one thing to another and gave me an absolute fright or surprise. And that, I hope I'm explaining this all right, but that feeling of being ripped from one moment to the next and being absolutely surprised has only happened in stream of consciousness writing. And I thought Virginia Woolf did that technique particularly well. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, Virginia Woolf, gorgeous novel. I'm due for a reread. I want the annotated version. There's an annotated version that came out recently of Mrs. Dalloway. I would love to have that. And basically this kicked off my relationship with Virginia Woolf, and for that I am incredibly grateful. The next novel, we are moving just a few years ahead to 1938, and this is a Gothic novel. And it also marked my first buddy read here on Booktube. And my first buddy read was with Alice in the Giant Bookshelf, and we read Rebecca together by Daphne du Maurier. And not only was this just a fantastic Gothic, slightly scary, suspenseful tale of a newly married couple, but the husband, Mr. De Winters, has a wife who has now passed, and that wife is in many ways haunting the new marriage. And the whole setting, for the most part, is set at Mr. De Winters' house, Manderley. And I thought what was so incredible about this novel is the way that it characterizes, the way that Daphne du Maurier characterizes the setting. The setting feels like it is absolutely alive and full of personality and has its own, in a weird way, like motivations and ideas in some ways. And I think that Manderley is actually the best character in Rebecca. Just saying, y'all. But I love this because du Maurier's prose work is gorgeous. And I just really appreciated how stunning and almost poetic her prose work is. So if you haven't read Rebecca and you want sort of a Gothic tale that is a bit mysterious, quite suspenseful, and that has just an absolutely stunning setting that has its own personality of its own, then yeah, Rebecca is just wonderful. And yeah, I'm thrilled, not only because it marked my first buddy read and now I'm like, I love buddy reading. It really does add a lot to a reading experience when two people or more read a book together at a similar pace and are able to discuss it together. But also the book that Alice and I discussed was incredible, and I've ever since wanted to explore more of du Maurier's writing, though I haven't yet, but it's on my list to do. The last book I'm going to talk about, I don't think anyone's talked about yet until Jack from the Rambling Raconteur mentioned it, but it wasn't in his top 5. It was an honorable mention, and this one is in my top 5. So hopefully I can kind of get the badge of the first person who mentions it. But not that we're being competitive here, but I wanted to mention Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. So let's talk about Wolf Hall, and then we'll talk about why it's personally meaningful to me. But Wolf Hall follows and basically rewrites the story of Thomas Cromwell, who is an advisor to King Henry VIII. And King Henry VIII is known as the king who has had a lot of wives, and many of those wives didn't have the best ending. And I think the reason why Cromwell gets such a bad name in history, in historical, he's very much the scapegoat. Is that right? Everything is pinned on Cromwell. Before these novels, a lot of King Henry VIII's actions and temper, I think, were pinned on Thomas Cromwell because he was a very high up advisor to the king during some of the downfalls of King Henry's wives. So throughout history, Thomas Cromwell has been cast as a villain. And then Hilary Mantel comes along in 2009, and she's like, hey now, I am going to take this character, this villain of Thomas Cromwell, and I am going to completely change him in the public consciousness to become a more complicated and a more difficult individual to understand, somebody who has their own intentions and motivations, and is very subversive and difficult to read. And I thought that Mantel doing that was just such a cool project, but it was, and it's also a feat because Thomas Cromwell has a name out there, and yet I thought she does it so well because Thomas Cromwell, now for me, ShellySwearingen, Cromwell sits as one of the most incredible characters I have ever read about, and I really have a deep affinity for Cromwell. Okay, so, and not only that, but Mantel's writing is beautiful, it's unique, it's one of a kind in my opinion, and just hanging out with the Tudors in the 1500s is super, super cool. Okay. That aside, so why is this book personally meaningful to me on my Booktube journey? And it was because the Up to No Good Book Club, a self-formed group, founded itself around the Wolf Hall trilogy. And so basically what I'm saying is that I've made friends through Wolf Hall, and we've now called ourselves the Up to No Good Book Club. And it's been a really wonderful experience to bond with people over a series, even if we all didn't love reading the series. the experience that went along with the reading of Wolf Hall, which individually stands alone as a fantastic read, but the experience of discussing it with a great group of people, all of which I'm friends with now, is burned into my memory. It is burned. That's like probably not a good thing. It is imprinted on my memory as a stunning and lovely thing. And it, my group, the Up to No Good Book Club, is still continuing to meet today. But we're reading different novels. We're not stuck on Mantel, though I wouldn't mind being stuck on Mantel. I don't think my group would love that. And this is just a fantastic novel, and we'll close out my 5th of the top 5 English novels for this video. Okay, so on to tagging people. I'm feeling kind of cheeky and devious right now, and I think it's because I'm at the moment where I get to tag people. And so now I'm completely understanding why Steve likes to weaponize ideas and turn them into tags, because this is a bamboozling amount of fun. And yeah, so the first person I am going to tag is Steve. Steve Donahue, you are tagged. What are your top 5 English novels? I'm also going to tag Gina Stanier of Gina Stanier Books, because I think she weaponized my idea and turned it into a tag. So Gina, your top 5 favorite English novels. And then now I'm going to just run through a list, because I would love to see this video from everybody, whether you're tagged or not. So even though everybody is tagged, I'm also going to tag individuals. And those individuals are the Up to No Good Book Club, which is Jolene from Bookworm Adventure Girl, AJ Dunn of AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, and Fraser Simon of Fraser Simon's Springboard Thought. Though nobody's excluded, the comments are there. Please leave a comment of your top 5 favorite English novels down below if you are so inspired to do so. And then the last handful of people I am going to tag are Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, Gem of Books, Jennifer Brooks, David Wiley, Anne with a Book, and Kim at Middle of the Book March. So everybody, all of y'all are tagged. I hope you feel quite inspired thinking about your top 5 favorite English novels. That concept right there. And that you enjoy thinking about it, and that you can put whatever lens you want on top of this idea. I hope you, just feel inspired and get a lot of joy thinking about this idea and doing the video if you decide to do that. Okay, that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.